Welcome to the channel and welcome back to yet another daily update on the situation here in China. Coming to you from Shenzhen. Today it's 18 degrees and raining. So first to the numbers as usual. Okay, cases within China. There are 59,864 confirmed cases. That's 14,840 up from yesterday. Now that's a massive increase, and I'll be discussing that in a couple of minutes. There are 1,368 deaths, which is again up 242 from yesterday, and there are 5,910 recoveries, which is 802 more than yesterday. Apart from Hubei, there are still only 3 provinces with in excess of 1,000 cases. They are Guangdong with 1,241, Henan with 1,169, and Zhejiang with 1,145. Within Guangdong, where I live, 2 main cities, Shenzhen and Guangzhou, have 391 and 327 cases respectively. A short while ago, Shenzhen started construction of a field hospital. It's approximately 60,000 square meters and will have capacity for around about 1,000 beds. And I think this is an example of forward planning by the Chinese authorities, but let's hope that's actually not needed. So global figures, there are 447 confirmed cases, still 1 death and 61 recoveries. Although yesterday the Prime Minister of Singapore suggested that they have a number of cases in critical condition and that the country should be prepared for maybe some bad news. So maybe shortly we will see the global death toll rise slightly due to those cases in Singapore. Of the new cases globally, 3 of those new cases are in Singapore, 1 was in London in the UK, and 1 in the US. Okay, so as you can see today, there's a massive increase in the numbers, and this is due to that the authorities have changed the way they report cases. So up until today, they were only reporting cases as confirmed if they had a positive result from the virus test. Now, due to lack of resources and maybe lack of test kits, I can't verify that they have a lack of test kits, but it does seem from other news that there is a worldwide shortage of test kits, and also these test kits may not be totally reliable. Some news out today that I think is the American CD have now said that a number of test kits that they have distributed have found to be faulty. So that's something we really don't need at this time. So now what the Chinese authorities have done, they are counting people in the total that also have a clinical diagnosis, so pneumonia or any other clinical diagnosis. These are also included in the numbers. And this is really quite interesting because yesterday there were quite a lot of commenters in the threads of the update I did yesterday that was saying, oh, China are just playing down the numbers, they've changed the way of reporting to try and make the numbers look less XYZ. And I had about 2 or 3 sort of viewers that personally email me sort of things, and I think it seems to be maybe the Guardian newspaper who reported that first in the UK, and this really just flies in the face of all that, and this is the danger of I was aware of this situation yesterday before I made the video, but I restrained myself from talking about this because, as I've said in the past, I like to try and base our videos on facts and not rumour and speculation. So, I'm sure those people will now say, "Oh, I told you so." There was way more cases than they'd reported, and I think through virtually all the videos I've done, I've always said I believe there are a lot more cases in Hubei province than there are being reported. But I don't think that's intentional. I think it's just simply because they are just so overwhelmed there. They just don't have the resources. They don't have the hospital beds. They've built 2 massive new hospitals. They've converted pretty much all the other kinds of properties, schools, colleges, sports halls into temporary hospitals to try and help. And I think something that makes me a little angry, I see some of these people outside of China sort of kind of gloat all the time. Oh yeah, but they're not telling us the truth. Look how many bodies are being burnt. Look how many lies that are being told about the situation. But I think they forget the reality. These are real people here, in Wuhan, in China. These are real people. Lots of medical workers fighting on the front line to try and help these people who become infected themselves. But people are still volunteering, volunteering to help these people, volunteering to drive these people, to and from work. These medical workers are being shunned by local community in fear that they will pass the virus on to them. And I really find it's quite disgraceful how some of these people outside China are viewing this situation, like, keep going on about blah, blah, blah. It really, really does annoy me. You imagine if you're a health worker in a hospital in Wuhan and you see a patient comes to see you, and they are an elderly patient, they have other illnesses, and they have contracted the virus, but you have to tell them, I'm sorry, but we don't have a bed for you. Basically, you've got to tell them that they need to return home, knowing full well that there's a good chance they might die because they can't get the treatment. And before all these people go, oh yeah, but China should be doing more, China should be... Look, China are doing pretty much everything they possibly can. I would hate to think if this sort of numbers popped up in other countries, even very developed nations like Europe and the US and places like Singapore. There is no way they would be able to deal with those kind of numbers. You're talking about 60,000 infected patients in the matter of about 4 weeks. Any health system will just crumble at that. So I really think China are really doing the best they possibly can. They're throwing everything and the kitchen sink at this to try and sort it out. And this is why you're seeing these so-called lockdowns in all the other provinces outside China. The measures of controlling are very strict, and this is simply because they don't want other provinces that get into the same situation as what's happened in Hubei, and especially Wuhan city. I just find it unbelievable how people are still being very critical of China. I see sort of on somebody else's YouTube channel, they were talking about a sulfur cloud above Wuhan, and this is proof of how many bodies they're burning. This is just rubbish. I think some other scientists worked out to create a sulfur cloud of that size, they would have to burn somewhere in excess of 10 million bodies, which is obviously just not the case. One thing you need to bear in mind is that Wuhan is a large steel making city. There's a huge amount of steel making in Wuhan. Maybe that is just the reason why there's a large sulfur cloud. That same channel went on today to talk about how the Chinese authorities are trying to prop up the stock market to make things seem not so bad as they are. My belief is they're not propping up that stock market to try and pretend everything's okay. They are propping up that stock market to prevent a worldwide financial crisis. If the stocks the stock market in China started to collapse, that would trigger a collapse of stock markets all around the world. You know, the Chinese economy now makes up approximately 17% of the world economy. So, you know, people need to start really thinking about those things. You know, what's happening here in China is going to have absolutely huge ripple effects around the world in the next few weeks. You know, it's estimated that somewhere between 5 and 10% of companies have fully got back into operation. You know, now you just look at pharmaceuticals, yeah? There's a report today that America could start to have issues with dealing with an outbreak simply because they rely on China to supply pharmaceutical drugs and raw materials, and there's a massive dependence on China worldwide for so much. So, you know, people really need to start sort of hoping that the Chinese authorities are getting this under control. You know, I'm here in China. It's very easy for these people sitting outside China and listening to the mainstream media that peddle you know, half truths, and they have sensational headlines based on speculation and rumor. We're here in China, we can see actually what's going on. Okay, fair enough, I'm not in Wuhan where the epicenter is, but I'm in Shenzhen. Now Shenzhen is a city in Guangdong. Guangdong has the second largest amount of cases, and I see, you know, firsthand on a daily basis what's going on here, and I can tell you there is a lot going on. They are doing everything in their power, you know, and you talk about finance is not an object here. They are really throwing everything they can at this to stop the spread, and I think the rest of the world need to be thankful for what China are doing. And it seems to me that Wuhan is being sacrificed to prevent the spread of this virus throughout Greater China and throughout the world. So on to other news. Japan have announced that they will allow people over the age of 80 and people with underlying illnesses to leave the quarantine cruise ship. Although that's great, I'd personally like to see everybody being taken off that cruise ship, and I think some other countries around the world should be stepping in to offer support to Japan on that basis. So yesterday a law was passed in Guangdong province outlining the trade and consumption of all wild animals. Now, although this is great news, I can't help feeling that it's just too late. I think had the Chinese authorities listened to advice from many experts after the SARS outbreak in 2003, we may have not been in the position we are today. And I do hope that from a national point of view, they will really have a big crackdown and have severe punishments for people who do continue to do this. Shenzhen have announced that they will test all people coming back into Shenzhen from Hubei province. I'm a little bit confused about this one, although this is good news. I was under the understanding from other reports I've read and sort of people who are pushing news out of Hubei and Wuhan itself, that people from Hubei province had been prevented from travelling outside that province. So I am a little bit confused about that, but this is one of the reasons why Shenzhen have built this field hospital. So anybody as they're coming back in, if you have been or passed through Hubei province, if when you come back into Shenzhen you're tested and proved to be positive, you will be taken straight to that field hospital for treatment and quarantine. The one case that was reported in the provinces of Tibet here in China, that person has now left hospital with the all clear, so that has become a province that actually has no cases whatsoever, which is great news. Chinese authorities are considering postponing the Gaokao examination. Now, for all of you outside China who don't know what the Gaokao is, it's a very, very important examination that young students take to determine which college they go to. So if you get a good score in your Gaokao, you can go to a much better college than if you get a low score in your Gaokao. And the new semester has started, and pretty much all of this has started online. So the authorities across China are running 24,000 university courses on 22 online platforms, so students don't miss out on their studies, which is also a great example of how we are using technology. A case in India that initially tested positive, after 2 further tests, that patient has now tested negative, so also more good news. And the outbreak is causing a number of large events around the world to be either cancelled or postponed. So the biggest one of these is the Mobile World Congress in Barcelona. This is a sort of global telecommunications sort of exhibition conference where many mobile phone brands launch their new handsets, etc., etc. And the other one is the China Shanghai Grand Prix. This has been postponed. This is a joint decision by the FIA and the Chinese authorities, so that has been postponed too. And the last bit of news to end this update on is a really happy piece of news. It's about a 3-month-old baby in the province of Hainan, named what's her name, Tian, and she has been released from hospital on Tuesday after recovering from the illness. So that brings me to the end of our update for today, and if you liked the video, please give us a thumbs up. If you like the channel, hit that subscribe button, and if you really like us, hit those bells. But for now, see you all tomorrow, and as always, take care.